I'm Miss Jenifer from Somerset Academy of Music. So sometimes in music you can come across Italian phrases. We use a lot of Italian actually in music. And these are some of the foremost common phrases that you will come across. And they can be very confusing. Sometimes people come across these and they have no idea what they mean. So I'm going to go through each one, all the different parts, and help you to understand what they mean when you come across these. And we're going to go through, we're going to dissect each one of these phrases to learn its different parts, and then they'll be easier to make sense because you can see some of the words are used in combination with other words. So if we understand what each phrase or word means, it's going to make it a lot easier to figure out what the music is telling us to do. So first off, we're going to start with DC. When you see DC, this stands for the Italian words de capo. De capo in Italian literally means from the beginning. So when you get to a place where the music says DC, what that's telling you to do is go back to the beginning of the song, kind of like a repeat sign. So you're just going to go all the way back to the beginning of the song whenever you see DC, and you start from there. Now the next part of this phrase, DC, we know that DC means to go back to the beginning, so now we have al fine. So first it's helpful if we understand what the word fine means, and it is pronounced fine. It looks like fine, but it's an Italian word again, so we're going to pronounce it with the Italian pronunciation, which is fine. So the word fine in Italian simply means end or ending. When we put it together with the words al fine, we're going to interpret that as to the end. So when we come across DC al fine, we're going to go back to the beginning and play to the end. The end is going to be marked with the word fine. So you're going to know when to stop. When you see the word fine, that's going to be your end of your song. So the initials DS just stand for the Italian phrase dal segno. Dal segno means from the sign. The sign is this symbol. So when you come to this phrase in your music, when you see DC al fine, you're going to be going back through the piece and you're going to look for this symbol, which is called the segno. When you find the segno, that's where you begin. So again, it's like a repeat sign, but instead of going back all the way to the beginning, this time we're going to go right to where this spot is. And this symbol is going to be sitting right on top of the measure, and the measure that it sits on top of, that's where you're going to begin from. Now, as we learned before, fine, if we have DS al fine, that means we're going to go back to the sign, and then we're going to play to the fine, or the end. So again, we're going to start at the sign, and then we're going to watch the music until we come to the word fine. That's where we're going to stop. Now we have the last part of our Italian to learn here, and then we'll be able to put all these phrases together. Now we have the word, or phrase rather, al coda. Coda is the word for this symbol. This is your coda sign. The word coda in Italian literally means tail. So in music, we're going to define a coda as a passage that brings the piece to an end. So it's a special section of the music that is only played at the end. It's the end, it's the tail of the piece. So that's the coda. So what we're going to need to do when we see this, when we use the al coda phrase, we're going to come to a phrase that looks like this, DC al coda. So we know that DC sends us back to the beginning of the piece. Then we're going to play until we find in the music somewhere it's going to say to coda. So when we get to that phrase, then we're going to find this symbol in the music. There's going to be a section, usually probably on the last page is where you're going to find this. You're going to find a section of music that has the coda on top of it. That's where you're going to start. You're going to skip everything that's in between the phrase to coda and where the coda symbol is. You just jump right from to coda directly to the coda. So now that we understand all the different words that make up these phrases, we should be able to read each one of these and know exactly what the composer, the music is trying to tell us to do. Okay. So with the first one, let's start with the first one. So if we have DC, we know that DC means go to the beginning, play to the end. So when we have a DC al fine, as soon as we get to that phrase, we're going to jump back to the beginning of the song, and we're going to play until we get to the word fine. Then we stop. We're finished. To DS al fine, what we're going to do is we're going to play our song from the beginning until we come to this phrase. When we see the phrase DS al fine, we know we're going to go back and we're going to look for the sign, and that's that S-looking figure that we saw before. So we're going to go back through our score, we're going to find the place where the sign is, and we're going to start there. We're going to go from there to the end of the song, or to where the piece says fine, which is often the last measure. So sometimes it's easy. Now, the phrase DC al coda, remember DC sends us back to the beginning. So again, we're going to go back to the beginning. Now this one is always a little more complicated when you have the codas because you have to do a lot more searching. It's kind of like a treasure hunt, trying to find all these different places in the score. It's a good idea to find them before you start playing the song, kind of look through to figure out where you're going to go. how many pages you have to turn back or not. So when we have the DCL coda, we're going to be playing through our song. When we come to the phrase DCL coda, we're going to DC, we're going to go back to the beginning. This time we're going to play only until we get to the words to coda. And also, oftentimes there will be the symbol there, that's the circle with the crosshairs through it. So when we get to the spot that says to coda, then we're going to jump over everything else in between and go directly to the coda, which is probably going to be on the last page of the music. And it's going to be marked again with a crosshair symbol. That's our coda. All right. So lastly, we've got the DSL coda, probably the most confusing of all of them. So we're going to play the piece all the way through until we come to the phrase that says DSL coda. When we get to this phrase, again, we're going to look for the segno. We're going to look for the sign, the S-shaped object. We're going to go back to the sign. We're going to play again until we come to the phrase that says to coda. When we find the to coda phrase, again, we're going to skip everything in between that phrase and the coda and go jump directly to the coda. Hopefully that made sense. Okay, to make sure we understand these completely, why don't we take a look at some of these elements on an actual score? Okay, so I've selected a piece of music here that has a lot of the elements and phrases and symbols that we've discussed. And so we're going to go through this piece together and just see how we can apply these to a real musical score. So we're going to start off. I'm just going to trace along the music with our pencil as we would play through. Okay, so we're going to obviously start at the beginning, and we're going to play the first line. When we come to the second line, we want to notice right here we've got one of our symbols that we learned about, the Sengo. So we want to take note. We're not going to do anything about it right now, but we just want to mentally take a note that it is here. Also, we also want to notice that we have a repeat bar facing into the music. So these two things tell me that we are multiple times going to be coming back to this spot. So we want to remember this spot is on the first page near the beginning. And that'll make it a whole lot easier if we can remember where it is. Okay, so then we're going to proceed on to the second line, third line. We're going to play all of the second page all the way through and flip over to the third page. Now we're going to play the first measure, and then right here we've got some of our phrases that we learned. Here's to coda and the crosshair sign, the coda sign. So again, mentally we're not going to do anything yet, but mentally we just want to take a note that that is here. And we look at the next measure, then we have here our first ending. So this first ending actually lasts for, we come across, and it's going to last to the end of the bracket here. So it's going to be 2 measures is our first ending, and we also have a repeat bar. So we're on our first time through the song, so we're going to play through this whole first line, play through our first ending, and then we're going to repeat back to, we remember that our repeat bar, instead of going all the way back to the beginning, we're going to go to this repeat bar. So then we're going to play through all of this page and the second page again, all the way through. And then now we want to remember we're on our second time through the song. So we're going to play this first measure. And when we get here, instead of playing the first ending, because we've already played it and we're now on our second time through the song, we want to look for the second ending. So we're going to skip over this first ending. We're not going to play it. We'll play this measure, and we're going to immediately jump down here and look here. We have our second ending. Our second ending is just 1 measure, so we're going to play that measure and then just continue on with the song until we come to our next instructions. Right here, down at above this last measure, we have the phrase DS al coda, which is our dal segno al coda. We remember that our DS always sends us back to the sign, and the al coda means that after we play back at the sign, we're going to watch out for the words to coda. When we see those, we're going to skip immediately to the coda. So right now we've got the DS. We're going to flip back. We remember that that was on the first page right here. So again, we're going to start at the same spot. We're going to play through this page. We're going to play all the way through the second page. And we're going to come here, and again, here we found those words to coda and the crosshair symbol. That's the coda symbol. So from this spot, we're going to just play this measure, and we're going to skip everything else on this page and head immediately to the coda. And as we said before, the coda is usually the last page of the song, and sure enough, here it is. Here we have a coda symbol, and this is our tail, our ending. We're going to play all the way through to the end of the song, and we're done.